Hey listener, and welcome to today's episode of DoubleDM. Today, Niels and I will discuss the One D&D announcements, documents, and look into the future of Dungeons & Dragons. We discuss all what we like and what we dislike about the playtest stuff and announcements. This episode will have less advice for running D&D and be more an open discussion meant to inspire you to form your own opinions on the playtest. The survey is out now, and you should fill it out if you haven't already. And with that, let's chat about One D&D, the playtest, and everything we dislike and like about the future of Dungeons and Dragons.
Hello and welcome back to DoubleDM episode 83. With me, as per usual, is my lovely co-host Emil. How are you doing today?
I am doing very, very well today, actually. It's a good day. I've been having fun, yes.
I can see that, but any specific reason?
No.
Okay.
I am just feeling refreshed. I am happy for many reasons. I've had a great vacation over the weekend. I've came back. I've had D&D yesterday on Wednesday. I have the Dark Eye presumably today on Thursday. I don't have a session on Friday, sadly, because someone cannot make the session time this week. Looking at the one person that said they can't on Friday. I don't know who that is. Niels, tell me.
Yeah, sorry, I have to work.
And then on Sunday, I have another D&D session. So
Nice.
This is still a very full week, and it's a very cool week. I still have to prep for Sunday's session, which is going to be interesting. Then I also have to edit the podcast episode for this, where this recap lands, episode 83, because I didn't have time to do that until yesterday.
Because you were on vacation, right?
Yeah.
So where did you go?
I went to Cologne, Germany for the weekend because, for video game nerds might know this, there was a convention in Cologne, Germany this last week, which was the Gamescom, which is supposedly the biggest entertainment video game expo that there is. So yeah, anyone listening that also has gone to Gamescom, first of all, why didn't you meet me? Second of all, I hope you have been testing and been wearing your mask at the event. Because even though many people say that you don't have to anymore, you should fucking wear your mask outside. You should test yourself if you've been at such an event for whatever reason. I've been testing every day since I got back. I tested on Tuesday, I tested on Wednesday, and I will test on Saturday again. My 2 tests already have been negative, so I'm pretty certain that I am negative.
It sounds all like it's in a good direction.
Also, the people that I went with also all have been testing negative, so I'm pretty certain that the group I have stayed with are all negative, which is another indicator that I am probably negative. Again, testing is still important. I will test myself again.
And for me, my week was pretty uneventful. We had this one session of Mothership that we played. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was.
But other than that, nothing really happened in my week other than work and getting yelled at work by customers because I had dirty shoes at work. But yeah.
Why would someone yell at you for dirty shoes?
I don't know. I think he was just frustrated that he had to wait a bit longer because we were understaffed. Then he had to wait like 3 or 4 minutes to get a bit of meat. And then he completely went ballistic on the staff on the meat section, screamed at them, yelled at them, just completely unpleasant person. Then I stepped in and said, hey, excuse me, could you please stop screaming, yelling and whatnot? And then he turned on my shoes because they were dirty and yelled at me. And then I ordered him out and banned him from the store. I won't let me or my colleagues get yelled at for no fucking reason.
Look at you braving the retail lifestyle.
Yeah.
Look at you fucking over customers and their weekly groceries.
Yeah, but when someone tells me if he wouldn't shop here, I'd have no job.
How does that actually work? I mean, he probably had a shopping cart or a shopping bag or whatever with him. Do you just take that and say, we will put that back? Or like, how does that work when they already have groceries? Because obviously they are not allowed to take them, right?
Exactly. It's exactly how you describe it. We usually say, yeah, leave the store. We will put everything you already have in your cart back, and then it's done.
When I go shopping, I always bring my own bag because that's more convenient for me. My bags can hold more than those shopping baskets. How does that work there? Do I just put them somewhere? Like I would be, first of all, I wouldn't be the person to yell at any store employee ever. So I probably wouldn't even have this problem. But if someone brings their own bags and they are filled with groceries, what do you do with that? Because obviously they still are allowed to keep their bag. It's still their property, right?
Then we get a shopping cart and tell them to empty the fucking bags in the shopping cart.
Very simple, but yeah, it's still interesting because I never saw that happen in my life.
Yeah,
I also never want to see that happen because it's completely bonkers that someone would scream at a store employee that basically makes sure that I can get the fucking food I want.
Yeah, usually, at least from what I witnessed over the years in retail, the people that bring their own fucking shopping baskets and bags or whatever don't make any problems. They are usually the chill ones.
They want to keep for themselves, right?
They are the ones, if you tell them something isn't there because it's sold out or anything, they say, okay, fine, and just don't go completely ballistic on the store employee and insult them for whatever reason because they didn't get the fucking beer they wanted because it was sold out.
I guess most of the people that bring their own bags are the more type of people that don't want to even talk to the store employee for themselves because they are, I know what I want, I know how much I need to carry home, so I have my own bags because I know how much I need to carry home.
Yeah.
I know where the stuff is. I go there, I take the stuff and leave. And if it isn't there, I ask. And maybe the store employee, at least when I don't find the stuff that I want, I ask, obviously. And if they say, we don't have that anymore, I ask, do you have a substitute for that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and you wouldn't believe how many people don't know the word hello, thank you, please. Any of the, I would say, baseline talking idioms. Hey, excuse me, hello, nothing like that. Sometimes some customers just walk up to me, say, milk, and look at me in...
God, I would feel so bad if I went like that, right?
Exactly, right?
If I have a store employee in front of me and I need to ask a question, my mindset is, oh fuck, I'm probably disturbing them while they have to work. They don't even want to help me necessarily, right? That's the thought process behind my asking. And then there is some people that have the fucking audacity to go, milk, like a fucking caveman.
Yeah, and then usually when someone does that, it's rare, but it happens. I usually just look at them and say popcorn or apples or something other, some other product we have in our store somewhere. And then
just the other end of the store.
Yeah, and then I just stare at them and see what they are doing. It's beautiful how quickly they cave. Oh yeah, sorry, hi. When someone just comes to me and says, "Excuse me, could you please help me?" or "I can't find this and this. Could you please show me where it is?" I usually not literally take them by their hand, but metaphorically, and show them exactly to the place in the fucking shelf where it is.
Yeah, especially because your store you are working at is pretty big, right? The store I go shopping normally is like only 3 rows of groceries, so they basically can just tell me where it is and I will find it after that anyway. It's so easy to be fucking pleasant to retail employees.
The sad thing is you get used to it.
That I think that's the bigger problem, right? It isn't one occurrence. It's I don't know how often, like the getting at the shoes might be an outlier,
that's a special thing,
but generally how general it is that people are basically just assholes to you or anyone else in your store. I'm just baffled that it's literally not a one-time occurrence, but...
Yeah, and it's getting worse.
Oh, what the fuck?
It's getting worse. I don't fucking know. Since the start of the pandemic, it's getting worse and worse.
Why?
I don't fucking know. It's just an observation we all made in our store.
God, that's even more disgusting. I actually would have thought that in the pandemic it would have been better because more and more people realized how fucking hard retail work actually is in this kind of situation we are in with the pandemic.
Nope, got worse.
Oh my fucking God.
Yep.
That's not even the worst thing. It's that they're basically more bad to the people working the store, which they have heard basically 3 years in a row in the news that they are the ones that do all the heavy lifting of our fucking society, apparently.
Yeah.
And that's just disgusting.
Yeah, and since the situation here in Europe, there's a lot of delivery shortages or delivery problems.
Yeah.
And you can't imagine imagine how many people go ballistic if some product isn't there because of delivery issues.
I mean, they should fucking know that by now, right? That stores since a few years now sometimes just do not have any flour or oil or whatever anymore.
Yeah, and I had this one customer that wanted a specific brand of coffee that wasn't there because of delivery issues. I told her, sorry, we don't have that anymore. We got some, but not everything we ordered because there are delivery issues. And then she went on screaming at me about how can I defend this company when the company is just trying to fuck the customer over. And I was like, what? Yeah. And she was going like, yeah, I work in retail as well. And I was like, yeah, then you should know the fucking problems. Where?
If you work in retail and screw another retail person, I think you should just get fired from your job.
I think you should just check into a mental facility.
No, okay. I cannot understand it. Maybe one time I was rude to a retail worker, but right?
I mean, that happens.
It happens if like, right again, the milk thing, right? If you forget courtesy for a moment, it fucking happens. And I think while it isn't obviously nice to the retail workers, I think most retail workers understand if you, I don't know, are exhausted and forget a common courtesy or something. Yeah. But obviously screaming at them is something completely different. That takes effort. That is a conscious decision of going, I want to fuck this person over now.
Exactly. So if someone just forgets courtesy, I mean, that happens to us as well. It's just a human thing. But the active decision to, like you said, it's just, I don't get it.
So we talked a lot about retail work today. I think with that done, we should go over to our screaming at Wizards of the Coast for One D&D. So yeah, we will jump into that right after our mid-roll. Hey everyone, and welcome to the mid-roll of the show. If you are enjoying the show and content, why not subscribe or follow the show right now on whichever platform you are listening on so you can stay up to date with all episode releases. Then, next you can search us up on social media at DoubleDM Pod or click the links in the info box of this episode to find our social media channels and follow us there if you want to stay up to date with all scheduling, information and episode announcements. If you follow us on Twitter, you will also get a plethora of social media posts as I spend way too much time on that platform. But hey, I have funny conversations with people like you and post memes, so that's a great thing. And lastly, if you want to help the show out even further, rate and review us on your platform. A quick 5-star rating or a few sentence review really gives us the feedback we need to improve the show and help other people find our show too. And hey, you can also just tell a friend about the fun you had learning with us and get them to listen in too. Also, we want to say that our show has open advertisement slots for you to book. Just head on over to our Twitter or email address doubledmpod@gmail.com to get into contact with us about getting your content shown on our show. Thank you for listening to this mid-roll, and now back to the show.
And with that, welcome back to the episode about One D&D, right? Emil, so
we finally have to talk about it as well, right? Yeah. Everyone has been talking about it for weeks, but since we have an upload schedule to keep track of, we can only talk about it now. It's already September as this episode releases, so I reckon that nearly everyone is already finished talking about it and has gone back to normal, at least whatever normal means for people. So yeah, we have a lot to go through. A lot. I just want to ask you one thing really quickly first up. Niels, Wizards Presents. It was on Thursday, right? I don't know when you looked at the things for the first time, but what was your very first impression about everything? Without going into detail, what was your first impression?
I thought it was a bit weird because I found the camera angles in the interview parts a bit weird. It's a weird thing to be weirded out about, I know, but
he talks like I was like, okay, what was your first impression of them announcing something new? Well, I didn't like the camera angle. So, okay, it was not what I expected. I'm gonna say that. I don't even know what camera angles you mean. I thought they were all fine.
Yeah, they were fine, but something bothered me about that, and I can't shake it. I don't know what, but
okay, I don't want to talk too much about the camera angles because the episode is already too long, but it had very much that feeling of an interview type for a documentary about wildlife or something, right?
Exactly.
Interviewing a professor.
This is the point. Now I know what it is.
These are game designers and not people that are... The problem is that it felt very much like an interview, while it wasn't actually an interview because it was an announcement from the game designers. I get what you mean, but it's completely irrelevant to this episode.
Yeah, but this was my first impression once I saw it.
I get it. I get it. Okay, so we're talking about One D&D today. If you do not know what that is, go look it up. Go download the playtest documents and get everything ready. So I want to say to those people that have read the rules or have seen the announcements, that have taken to Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, MySpace, whatever else social media sites you use, Telegram or whatever, calm your fucking tits. I have seen so much discussion on this topic already, and it's a playtest document with a first glance at what is supposed to be a series of many documents. So please calm down, everyone. Wizards is not lying to us. What they said in the video should be seen as true for right now. I know we shouldn't trust big corporations, and I'm saying that we shouldn't trust Hasbro and Wizards with all they say, but if they say this is what we are having here and they give you more or less the proof of what they're having, trust that for the moment. Don't go around spitting conspiracy theories out, right? I've seen a TikTok about corporate propaganda, that this is all corporate propaganda, that they're gonna sell a next edition of D&D very soon, right? There will be more editions of D&D once they realize that they have to make a new edition and all of that stuff. And hey, can we please stop that? The playtest document has been out for 5 days at the point of this recording. I understand that we are looking into the future, and this is a first glance into what is going to be the future of 2024 D&D and onwards, but please stop this fear-mongering about stuff that isn't really there. However, there is something here. This is a playtest. This is Wizards asking us to give our opinions. So please, while you shouldn't panic, talk about this stuff. This is why we're doing this episode, I think, mainly, is so we talk about the stuff. Niels and I have a need to talk about this stuff, and this is what we're doing. And this is what I want to put out first and foremost. Form your own opinions, talk about them online, use whatever medium you have to make your opinion heard. Go to the playtest document and complete the feedback survey. Wizards wants us to make our opinion heard. Talk about the bad stuff. Talk about the good stuff. Talk about that there are still underlying implications of racism and bioessentialism in races and backgrounds. Do that. Talk about that you do not like whatever rules they implemented. Talk about that you enjoy the idea that they have. Give them the feedback they want. They've been developing this in the dark for a good reason, right? They had just announced it. They have been developing this in the darkness for a long time. Now they said, please, players, this is for you. Tell us what you think. And this is why they're releasing this in these short waves. So they have it way easier to address the changes that players want to have. This is the first time, I think, that they have basically given us, probably, in quotation marks, significant impact on how the next edition of the game is gonna look like.
Oh yeah.
This is the first time that we really can, through the means of the internet, social media, digital content, change the way the edition looks to what we as a collective of players want. So if you, and I know I'm not the only one in that, I know a lot of people that do it, this is probably my bubble, but that's the good bubble I want to be part of, do not like that there is still a lot of underlying implications, bioessentialism and racism in the game. That is my opinion. There are still implications in the races and the backgrounds. Drop those, and they can do it, and they should do it. So, okay. Yes. Disclaimers done. Now let's talk about D&D. First up, what is One D&D? Please answer that for me.
I think One D&D feels like a working title.
It is.
It feels like something that needs to have a title but is still in progress. Like that's why it's
a marketing title. It's simple, right? They wanted to say D&D is finished. One D&D, right? That's how they advertised it in the setting. We are now having One D&D. It wasn't that much about that the edition is called One D&D, but that they could say this is the One D&D, the one to rule them all, basically, right? It's the marketing, it's the work in progress title, and I'm sure they're not gonna use that title because it sounds so fucking bad.
Hell yeah.
It fulfills the purpose it's supposed to fulfill. It's supposed to get people talking about it. It's supposed to be different from what we used before, D&D or D&D 5e. Yeah, it gets people to give out ideas, but I'm pretty sure that's not gonna be the last.
Yeah, and because I think that's why as well they release all the playtests. They are still working on this. It's not a finished thing.
It's going to come out in 2024, right? We haven't even finished 2022 yet.
Yeah, they have basically 2 whole years. And in those 2 years, a lot of things can happen. And one of those things will hopefully be a name change because It's just a work in progress title, right?
Yeah, it's just a marketing title. Yeah, it's a good title for what it's supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No new editions of D&D is, I think, the biggest thing that is supposed to be known about One D&D. Wizards of the Coast wants us to call it D&D. There isn't something as 5e anymore. It's D&D. They actually just want us to drop the 5e from D&D 5e.
Yeah.
They want us to call that edition D&D, which is smart because I think since 2018, 19, I don't know which year, around that time, Wizards have begun calling D&D 5e just Dungeons and Dragons. They didn't use 5e in any of their official material anymore, I think, for a long time. For a good reason. They know this is the most successful D&D has ever been and maybe ever will be. If they make a new edition, they might lose a lot of players, and I hope that a lot more people discover more indie games and find the game that works best for them. But obviously, from a business perspective, it's smart to say, this is our magnum opus. We cannot get better than this. Let's improve it to what the people want.
Exactly, and that's something you touched on there. They are not saying that 5e is perfect in any way. They release these new things to improve on the things that have been noted or discussed as bad, that they think that are bad. I think that is the intention behind it. However this might play out is a completely different story, but they want to improve the D&D they have right now because this is the most, like you said, their magnum opus. It's the most influential D&D they ever created.
Exactly. From a business perspective, it's the best D&D they could have ever built. Because it is the best. No, okay, it's the biggest role-playing game out. People cannot dispute that. Is it the best? No, I wouldn't argue that because there isn't really a best TTRPG, but besides the point. It's that this edition, D&D 5e, as it is out right now, as you can play it as the official D&D right now, is the biggest, most popular thing they put out. There's a lot of factors that play into that. Critical Role, Stranger Things, even though those played D&D obviously in the series, obviously the people playing come to D&D 5e because D&D 5e is very, and yes, I'm saying simple, even though I can agree that D&D 5e isn't actually very simple as a system, but it's understandable. It's hard to define this because I do not agree that D&D 5e is simple, but it's easy to learn for many people that want to play role-playing games.
And I think that's because it's easy to access more information from the community because it's such a big community.
It's the biggest, it's the easiest to learn because there's so much content on it.
Yeah, and so many people to help and all of that, yeah.
We don't have to discuss why D&D is so big or why D&D is great or whatever. People can form their own opinions on that. Wizards is just saying, this is the best we can do. Now let's improve it to be the best what we can do actually. What the players want. So, let's talk about the actual things we know. First of all, we have a document which is 30 pages long or something, which is a lot for a playtest document, for a first view playtest document. Not a lot to judge, but a lot to information to come off of. So, first of all, let's talk about the things that are not necessarily mentioned in the document itself. So, let's talk about backwards compatibility is, I think, one of the biggest things that has been mentioned in terms of D&D 5, of One D&D, is that it's backwards compatible with 5e.
Yeah, and I think that gives out some implications. Because if you say something is backwards compatible, kind of implies that you're trying to make a new edition. What they are trying to do, at least that's what they're saying. But it's still a new version of something. It is new stuff. And to make the stuff that they are now making still available to every game of that what was once called D&D 5e, or is now just called D&D, is I think good thing per se, because you can still use everything you have ever used before, just with minor changes maybe.
It's the very simple model of them just revising the core books, the PHB, the Monster Manual, and the Dungeon Master's Guide, which have been announced to all become revised books, but keeping the core of the game itself. It's still gonna be D&D 5e. You're not gonna see any changes to the ability scores or skills or saving throws or attack rolls or whatever, but there's gonna be a lot of different changes on how to use those. It's gonna be as if someone would release a third-party book with 300 pages that just builds on top of what is already there. It just is, obviously, it's very simple. You have a lot more new players joining the game. You have a very large portion of people that have only played 5th edition, and you do not want to lose those people, because if you change an edition to be something that is not compatible with what came before, which was 5th edition, wasn't compatible with 4th edition. 4th edition wasn't compatible with 3.5. 3.5 was compatible with 3, and so on and so on and so on and so on and so forth, right? Those were edition changes. And I think the backwards compatibility is just saying, again, there is no new edition. It's just that we are going to release a lot lot of new content for this old edition that is gonna change fundamentally how this edition looks, but not works. It's gonna work the same. Say 5th edition is the best because it is for us, and just give the people all the changes that they want.
Exactly.
This is basically just gonna be errata plus, basically. They're just gonna give a lot of changes, a lot of different things that are very much compatible with the old stuff. So you do not have to buy the new stuff. You can just use your old stuff and still play the same edition as those people that use the new stuff play, which just allows for more accessibility in play, theoretically. Theoretically. Obviously, Wizards wants you to buy everything they produce, which isn't accessible, as D&D is a very expensive TTRPG. One of the most, if not the most expensive TTRPG. But if you do only own the PHP from 2016, 15?
I think 14. 14 was the release.
2014, sorry. 2014. If you only own that PHP, you can still play with someone that has the new PHP of 2024. I think that's what they were trying to say.
Yeah.
And that's not bad.
No, it just creates the ability to have a wider player base.
I'm just gonna say it. It creates more opportunities for Wizards to make money.
Yeah.
Period. This is obviously money making. It's a company. Obviously they're gonna make money or want to make money, and this is the step they choose for that. This is a business step as well. It's gonna make them more money in their opinion, so obviously they're gonna do it. But yeah, okay. D&D is getting a virtual tabletop. What's your opinion on that?
I'm kind of split, but I like the idea that they were taking, at least in the Wizards Presents, in the optical way of presenting this virtual tabletop, because it really looks like miniatures, at least in the snippets that we saw.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of torn on the way this kind of tabletop or virtual tabletop is usable. Because I think, especially in a 3D virtual tabletop, the navigation through that...
I mean, there are a lot of 3D virtual tabletops already, right? Tailspinner, I think, is another one. Tabletop Simulator is theoretically a third one.
Yeah,
so
and
they already exist. It's not the new idea from Wizards.
No, it is not. Definitely not. But I played Tabletop Simulator, and there are some D&D games in there, and I think it's a bit too hard to navigate through that.
I think I can consolidate you in that regard. It's gonna be very easily usable.
Yeah.
The navigation will be easy. I can tell you that much, because it's gonna be a lot like Tailspire instead of Tabletop Simulator. So it should be. Wizards is gonna create a virtual tabletop which is, well, it's a logical step for me. Online players become massive thanks to the pandemic. The acquisition of D&D Beyond wasn't without a plan behind it. They could have done that in 2019 when D&D Beyond was conceived or something. They just did it now because now they have plans for a virtual tabletop, and obviously they want to integrate the website that is perfect for their system into that.
Yeah.
And on top of that, right, the next point is the physical and virtual bundles. You can now buy physical and virtual books in a bundle, meaning you get the D&D Beyond code plus the physical book, which is on the at face value, very good change.
Oh yeah, it is.
But a lot of what people have been asking for since D&D Beyond, and it's finally here with the virtual tabletop as well. That's gonna do a lot. So, but with the virtual tabletop comes now the problem of a D&D based subscription service. This has not been really said anywhere. It's just that there is a miniature creator, I think, with the virtual tabletop that has been announced. There's a subscription service attached to that virtual tabletop in some way. Maybe it's for the whole virtual tabletop, which isn't the first of its kind. Roll20 has that as well. But for example, for me, I am not a big fan of subscription services. I have very few streaming services because I hate paying a subscription.
Yeah.
I cancel nearly everything on a subscription basis as soon as I do not want it anymore. I've bought Foundry virtual tabletop because it was a virtual tabletop that didn't have a fucking subscription service. That was the main selling point for me. And now, rightfully so, people are scared. I don't want to say that D&D is gonna have a subscription service. Pay a monthly subscription and you get all the digital books you want, all the compendium content you want, you get access to the virtual tabletop and all the stuff you want. And I'm gonna say it. First of all, that has not been said. Yes, you could say that it's like the first point I made in this episode. It's about fear-mongering and we shouldn't talk about it, but I think it's actually interesting to talk about this subscription service, about the idea behind it, because I'm gonna say it. Maybe they're doing it. It would be a smart business decision. Subscription services pay more than a one-time purchase if you have enough people signing up. But why would they only do one of the two? That's literally not the best way to do it. It's very simple to do. Go the Xbox Game Pass route. Give people all the content for a monthly subscription, and everyone can also just physically and virtually buy the books they want. People can decide if they want to buy everything with a subscription or if they want to pay just this much for one book. Like, obviously they're thinking about that. I'm gonna just say it. Obviously, I'm pretty sure that they're thinking about that. Pretty sure.
Yeah, and I mean, just adding a subscription option isn't the worst thing in the world, because as long as you're still having the option to buy it through one-time purchases, just the books you want, I think it's totally fine, because you're not forced to do anything as long as there's still this one-time purchase thing there.
I mean, there needs to be an incentive for the little bit more for the subscription service, obviously, because obviously it's to get people to subscribe, because subscribing would be more cheap for the Xbox Game Pass. It's cheaper to subscribe than to buy nearly every game that is in the Xbox Game Pass when you wanted to. Obviously, it's cheaper to subscribe, but you need some more incentives maybe for Wizards, because they cannot release a new video game like the 100 studios that are behind the Xbox Game Pass every week or something. That's not possible for Wizards. So maybe they're gonna allow you early access to these books. That's gonna be maybe an incentive, right? I'm not saying that I want that. I'm not a fan of the subscription service, but I understand that it's maybe the smartest business move for them. Subscriptions pay more than a one-time purchase. And maybe that's a really bad thing for the hobby as a whole, because yes, I agree. If Wizards is gonna move to subscription services, there are probably people that are gonna follow. It's probably hurting the TTRPG space. Maybe. Yeah, I'm not here to discuss that. I'm here to discuss One D&D at this time. But it's a smart fucking idea, but I still don't really enjoy the idea of it. It's not been announced, so we need to calm our fucking tits.
Yeah, coming back to point one.
We can talk about it, right? It's okay to talk about it. It's an interesting idea to discuss. It's not one that I really enjoy. I don't know. Yeah, maybe they allow people to get early access to stuff, right? Digital dice. The subscription for the virtual tabletop is you can create your own minis with, I don't know, maybe they will acquire Hero Forge as well and then allow you to create your own Hero Forge minis or have their own mini maker or whatever. You get all these different digital benefits from the subscription plus access to the books on D&D Beyond.
Yeah.
Hey, the thing is, I have a subscription to D&D Beyond with my players because we have content sharing for our campaigns, right? Every one of us pays, I think, 10 euros a year, so my account can share all the content because I own all the content. Hey, and if my players, for example, I do not own all books, but I do own most of them. If one of my players that is in one of these campaigns wants one of the books, he can pay for it on my account and I enable content sharing for him all the time he wants. That's how we do it. That's how it works because I DM all the time for D&D. But this subscription is a little bit lackluster aside from the content sharing because you get digital rewards. You get a background for your fucking character sheet. I'm a DM. I do not get to play. Like, thank you. No, I don't want to bash on D&D Beyond too much because it's still a good service for me. But hey, maybe that subscription service is just gonna be, why not add another tier that allows people to get all the content from the books with the subscription service?
Yeah.
I do see it coming. Yeah, it's possibility. So
to reiterate, don't stress about it. Calm your fucking tits, keep calm, and see where all of this is going.
It's bad to panic about it because people are gonna believe you on the internet. I've seen a TikTok with like 8,000 likes that was fear-mongering as heck. Don't do that. It's way too early. Wizards is saying that they are changing the game to what we want them to do, and no one of us fucking believes them. Really? Like,
and most of all, keep it a civil discussion and not just fear-mongering, bashing, slandering, whatever.
But one caveat, if there is really a big issue, for example, racism, bioessentialism, sexism in these rules, do make it a big discussion. They're gonna release new books and I have to pay more money for them. Yes, they're gonna do that every 3 months anyway.
Yeah.
We get new books every 3 months. Obviously, we have to pay for them. Do not cry about that type of stuff. Cry about the things that are actually bad. We have things to talk about, not these minor bullshit things.
Exactly.
So we have a 30-page document before us. So let's talk about it from top to bottom. First of all is character origins. Those have been divided into 3 categories: races, backgrounds, languages. First of all, I like that idea to put that origin basically into a lot of different smaller steps and then say, so what is your character before they are a class? They're not just an orc or not just a human. They are a human from this place with this occupation before adventuring and that type of stuff. And that training, that's a good idea and that's a good first step. But let's talk about races. So the races all in this playtest document are all the races that are gonna be in the new revised PHB. Most of these are the normal races we have already seen in the PHB. One addition, orcs. Orcs are now an official PHB race instead of, I think, a monster manual race, which they were before. So that's a simple but good change, I feel. So one thing is the big change of Ardlings and Tieflings. There's no ASMR anymore, there's Ardlings now. There is beings infused with energy from the upper planes and beings infused with energy from the lower planes, each having 3 subcategories. It's good to see a change that says basically the Tieflings and ASMRs are now more, not just one is God, one is devils, but one of them is basically all the upper plane beings and one of them is all the lower plane beings in a humanoid form. I like the idea of that. I like what I'm seeing here with the races.
Yeah, I think it just, especially the Tiefling and Ardling thing, I think it just opens up more of a wider or more options for you, because it's not just devils and angels or gods. It's, like you said, all the lower planes and upper plane beings, where you can then just flavor it the way you want it to be flavored without conflicting the lore that Wizards presents in Faerun, for example, because it now broadens the terms where these lineages come from.
What also is good that they are moving a lot of stuff away from races to background to stop mixing heritage and culture, because those two things are not the same, right? That was one of the big problems, saying all drows are trained with weapons, all orcs are savage attackers. That's the problem. That is literally a big racism problem, and no debate about that. But it's not finished. There is still not enough work for me done here for the races to not have underlying racism implications. They should hammer that more home. And I'm gonna make that felt in my feedback in that survey as soon as I can fill it out, because that is my opinion. I do not want to discuss too much about racism and bioessentialism here, because first of all, this is not because Nils and I don't care. This is because we're both white males. We are not equipped to handle this topic with enough care, in my opinion. The best part we can do is say it is there and then listen to the people that actually know what they're talking about. So please listen to the people that know what they are talking about. When they say this is racism, you should listen to them.
Exactly.
If someone says this feels racist to me, this feels bioessentialist to me, listen to what they're saying. Do not dismiss their opinion. It's important to hear what they are saying. So same for the mixed culture thing, for the mixed heritage thing, for when you have parents of different races. It's been moved to this very tiny sidebar that basically just says, yeah, we dismiss that. We don't really care. It could have been done better, really.
Yeah, definitely. But one thing I wanted to say to that is it's a start, but it's definitely not finished at all.
I'm gonna say it's a start, and if enough people make their voice heard in the feedback, I am sure Wizards are gonna do better. I don't know if they're gonna eliminate all problems, but this is a step, and I know that isn't much. It's a step, but it should be more, in my opinion.
Yeah, most definitely. But laying out the start for that is at least a thing.
Yeah,
let's keep it like that.
Let's move to backgrounds. Backgrounds. So I'm gonna say I enjoy what I'm seeing here. I enjoy a lot what I'm seeing here. Giving backgrounds, first of all, a feat. So everyone starts with a feat, and also that it's completely irrelevant. You do not have any standard backgrounds, right? There are a few standard backgrounds in here that do have, again, some implications that are not the best, but generally that you have basically full autonomy over your background is good. Especially these background features, right? They've been so fucking useless in 5e for me that just giving a background a feat that is more relevant to the game probably is one of the good changes. It's a good change. I like it.
Definitely. It has definitely a lot of potential. But one thing that I don't especially completely like with the backgrounds is the change of equipment, that there isn't these equipment bundles anymore, at least not in the background, because I really like those, because whatever equipment bundle you chose, it gave implications on what type of background or in which direction your background wanted to go or could go.
Maybe they're going to include these packs still, basically buy one adventuring pack, and that costs you 35 gold.
Yeah.
Right? You get 50 gold per background, and then just buy your stuff. And I'm pretty sure that they're gonna just say, hey, these adventuring packs that we had, you can just buy them, because why not?
Yeah, that's something that I just wanted to point out, is that I want them to keep that, because I really like those, especially for newer players, where there's in an adventuring kit, there's everything basically that you definitely need. Rations, water skins, bedrolls, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And these aren't in the standard equipment in those backgrounds.
Yeah.
And that can be a problem for newer players because they don't know exactly what they need.
Yeah, combing through equipment lists is also a thing that I did never really like when playing. I just would love to basically pick the best options and go on. So I get what you mean. But okay, third step. I really enjoy this step. Languages. I love the idea of giving you full autonomy over which languages you speak.
Oh, yeah.
Common and 2 other languages from the tables below. A very good change. It's a very brilliant change for me because it allows you more autonomy over who your character is, because language speaks a lot for your character.
Yeah.
One other thing, what I wanted to point out right at this moment is I love that they are adding common sign language to the game.
Yeah, I love that.
Right at the top of this table, that common sign language is part of the game now. Sign language has officially been put into the PHB of D&D. I hope they keep that.
Yeah.
Because that is a brilliant change. It's just a line of text, but it's gonna add accessibility to people around the world. It's representation, right? It shows people that wizards know sign language should exist in their world and that you can now take it officially in the rules of the game. It doesn't sound like much, but it's actually a lot for the people.
Yeah, I totally agree. The placement of that in the list, that it's that high up, it's a good thing that it's finally in there.
Yeah. And third thing, which is probably my favorite change actually about the languages, everyone can speak fucking thieves can't. It's not a thieves only language or not a rogue only language anymore. It's everyone that has a criminal background should probably speak this language.
Yeah, or same with the Druidic.
Or same with Druidic, right? It makes these secret languages way more relevant to the game, I feel. Because now even if you don't have a rogue in your game, you can have someone that can speak this language. And using thieves can't is one of my favorite things in the game, because secret languages with signs and different meanings is that's juicy stuff in gamer for me. I love it. It's so cool when your players to have these weird moments that no one understands except those people in the know, right? If you know, you know.
Exactly.
That's so fucking cool.
These split messages that you say something out loud, but for everyone who knows the code, it means something else.
Nice. I really like these language changes. Those were the first ones where I really looked at and said, wow, that's a good change.
Yeah. So moving on to feats.
What do you want, picks?
No, please not.
No, yeah, feats.
What's your opinion on that?
So I like the idea a lot of leveling feats, right? Not every feat has to compete with the lucky feat, basically.
Yeah.
Right? Because the value of feats was very different. And sometimes when you take a feat, it wasn't really that useful for you because of specific reasons. And other people took a feat and it was majorly useful. Saying that their feats are different levels and you need to be a specific level to get that feat is brilliant in and of itself. It also would allow to, I think, make adding new feats by homebrewers or Wizards of the Coast later on way easier, because they just have to say, okay, we want a few new first level feats. Let's look at the first level feats and only compare to those. Because if you made a feat, you had to compare it to the alert, lucky, magic initiate feat, and we're completely left between balance between these three.
Yeah.
So it's gonna add balance to the feats, which I think is good. And since feats have become more relevant with backgrounds, just allows for a lot more usability in feats. And I think that's a good thing, because now feats are not an optional rule anymore, right? They were an optional fucking rule before.
Yeah.
I really think that they're saying, use these rules. This is not optional anymore. This is base game now, which is great.
Yeah. And one thing about one specific feat that I like is what I see is the crafter feat, because I think it implies that they are trying to make a interesting or more interesting crafting system than take the time and half the money.
I still think that the crafting system is not going to be a big part of the game, but I think that the crafter feat, as you said, implies that they're putting more emphasis on not just combat in the game.
Exactly. Pointing towards something that there is just more than it's just combat feats, or that there is something. Maybe they will put some more thought into the crafting system, or some thought into something else, but not just combat. And I think that's a great thing to do. Yeah,
it's a nice idea, right? Right. This first document is very much a direction for me. It's a direction Wizards is going.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a direction that they're moving away from only combat, maybe to a craft, not necessarily to a full crafting system, but to an idea of making crafting more relevant, which is good. Let's move to rules, right? Now, after feats, we get to rules.
Yeah.
So the first rule that stuck out to me, next to the just basically better definition of specific rule types and stuff like that, the success and failure on every 20 and 1 you roll is not just anymore for attack rolls, it's for saving throws, it's for ability checks, it's for every dice roll you make. If you roll a 20, it's an automatic success. If you roll a 1, it's an automatic failure. Little background on that. I use that rule with my players. I love that rule, but I think the changes are bad. Personally, it's exactly the rule I use. It's my rule. It's what I've always played with. It's how I enjoy the game more. But why include this? It's a common house rule, I know, but making it just a normal rule in the game is not gonna shift the discussion. The discussion is gonna be still the same about it, because this has been probably the most used homebrew rule. And basically Wizards changing their stance on it, right? Before they just said what they wanted to do, people changed that, and now Wizards is taking a chance, okay, we're changing as well. It's not gonna shift the discussion at all. The people that didn't like the homebrew rule at first are not gonna like this new rule change. They're just gonna now say, no, I do not use that rule, and gonna homebrew rule it the other way around now.
Yeah.
It's not gonna change the discussion. It's a useless change for me, because obviously I will still play like I do. So the change doesn't change anything for me, but it also doesn't change anything for anyone new starting the game, because if you try to look up anything for D&D, basically that rule already has, you know about that rule, right? I just feel like it's such a useless change.
Yeah.
It doesn't change anything about the game or the rules or anything. They could have just kept it out and put it in as an optional rule in the game. It doesn't change anything. Why?
Exactly. And then another thing regarding that 20 is the critical hits. They now said not just double the dice or the number on the dice, but you roll 2d6 instead of 1d6, for example.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to define it more, but yeah, I think that this was okay as it was. It's, again, kind of useless.
It's a useless change. I'm not saying that it's a bad change, it's a useless one. Okay, so yeah, moving on from that. Reworked inspiration. Yes. What is your opinion on the inspiration now?
I'm not a big fan of that.
You can just let me speak if you want, but
no, I don't like it.
Okay.
In my opinion, I don't like it. Getting inspiration on every net 20 or something, it's not my kind of deal.
Okay, can I?
Yeah, sure.
I fucking hate it. I really fucking hate this. I didn't use inspiration often in my games. I say that, yes. So yeah, it was. Even in the base rules of D&D 5e, it was a useless mechanic. It was fucking sticky noted somewhere into the book, basically, by the person that owned the PHP before you and said, here, use it. And you just rip the sticky note out and forget about it. This is how inspiration felt before. And now it's, let's reward people for rolling on a straight D20, reward luck. Rewarding luck in a game is not a good mechanic for the game, right? That's the same thing why people say you shouldn't crit on a 20 or you shouldn't fail on a 1 because that's rewarding, and that is still fun. I'm gonna say that it sounds a little bit hypocritical of me, I know, but I really do not like rewarding people with a later on advantage.
That I think that's exactly the point.
For rolling on a dice before, because it's a spiral fucking system. Has anyone ever thought about that? If you get advantage, you have a higher chance of rolling a 20 once again.
Yep.
So if you get an inspiration, you have a higher chance of getting it again. That is not good game design, because it will lead to frustration from the player that doesn't get to roll. What I do like is that you lose it on a long rest.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it that you lose it because now that means kinda says use this stuff more. It's the idea of we want this stuff to be used. Cool, but then make it interesting.
Yeah, I usually, when I played with inspiration, which isn't often, or which wasn't often, I usually gave it out for intense role-playing moments or character moments, but it's still not been used at all, basically. And
that's also maybe a problem, right? Of rewarding it just for roleplay. Could be a problem for other people. I don't fucking care. I use a different inspiration system altogether. I use cards. I didn't like inspiration before. They didn't change it well. Do better here. Give a good mechanic behind it. And I would use it. but right now, So, before I start ranting more, let's talk about conditions.
Yeah, I really love the idea of the slowed condition.
It's so fucking good.
I love it.
Because the slowed spell now only applies the slowed condition, and now the slowed condition can be applied through different means, and you do not have to give your homebrew monsters or the monsters in the game an ability that means it slows, as in the description of the slowed spell, which was the weirdest fucking subtext you could read.
Yeah, it's not now just slowed condition.
Yeah, it's so great. It's a very small change, but it's a quality of life change that is gonna be good.
Yeah, and what I also really like is the changes to the grappled condition.
Mm-hmm.
That now a grappling build is really viable without any much more, because it's not just reducing the speed to 0 anymore. You now are forcing the target that you're grappling to basically attack you or someone else with disadvantage. It has other benefits than just, the speed is 0.
Yeah, put some more incentive on the condition, which is very good.
Exactly. But I have one thing about the incapacitated condition.
Okay, yeah.
There's one thing. It says you can't take actions or reactions. What the fuck about bonus actions?
I get what you mean. I thought about that as well. And then I was like, wait, there is a rule, I think. I haven't looked it up, so I'm going to be honest. This is just me spitballing. But I think that there is a rule about bonus actions only being that you, right? The thing is about bonus action is you can only use a bonus action if you get one. That's the rule.
Yeah.
And you do not get a bonus action without taking an action, because only actions allow you to take bonus actions. Maybe they just missed that in the text as well, could be, but I think that that's just also how it was, so how it is.
Yeah, but that's something I have to look up. But this is, I just was like, wait. For the first time reading, wait a second. What? Excuse me? I can still cast Healing Word on myself even though I'm incapacitated? That doesn't sound right.
So another change, which I really enjoy, is the long rest changes. I love that long rests now get interrupted and need to be started again. It's such a good change. I hate, right? I understood why you said, okay, a long rest can be interrupted by one combat or something, but fuck that shit. Fuck it so much. Make the game just a little bit harder. It's gonna have that small of an impact, but it's gonna be an impact that is still making the game a little bit harder, because long rests can now be interrupted by by combats. Hey, that's cool. I like it as a DM. I like it as a DM that DMs a game that is a lot about travel, where long rests come in often. So interrupting one for my players is gonna be a good thing.
And not in safe places. If you're resting in a tavern, that's a thing. That's the other thing. But if you're resting outside in the fucking woods, the long rest will be broken and interrupted. I love it.
So, last thing on our list to talk about today is the new spell lists. There are now 3 different spell lists: Arcane, Divine, Primal.
Yeah.
Those 3 spell lists exist. What's your opinion, Niels?
Nah. I really don't like it. I loved it that different classes could cast different spells. And I think something like this, or even lean into that even more.
Exactly.
To make a clear distinction between a wizard and a fucking sorcerer.
Yes, I wanted that so much.
Yeah, but now both our arcane casters have the same fucking spell list. Why? Sorcerers cast different spells than wizards for a reason. Please don't.
The thing is, on the base level surface, on level 1, you get more spells for your spellcaster. And that is good. For every spellcaster, that is a good change. You get more spells. But please think about it more. It just means that the variation is less there. A wizard can now fill the same spot as a bard because they have the same spells or whatever. Or the same spot as a sorcerer because they have the same spells. They do still have different ways of engaging with the spells. Wizard would still be able to learn more spells from the list. Sorcerer could still use meta magic. But that's not enough for me.
No, it isn't.
I would even like if the spell lists themselves change how you have to engage with them. Because, some classes might be able to say, I don't know, maybe the arcane domain of the cleric says you can choose between the arcane or divine spell lists and choose one of the 2 for your character. Maybe that's something, right? Maybe they're gonna say there are different changes to the spell list and that you can choose between 2 spell lists for your character. That would be a good change, I first of all have to say. If I can play a wizard that uses primal spells, hey, I would enjoy that. But then give me an incentive that all these 3 spell lists work different in a complete way.
Exactly.
On the way that you have to recover spells, on the way that you have to engage with the spell lists, whatever. I want more incentive put on variation variation in the spellcasters without losing these options that I now have. I like that I can have more options for spells with my spellcaster. That's not a bad change, but I do not like that it now waters down to they all get the same spells and yay.
Yeah, for example, I just did up on the arcane spell list on the cantrips, there's the Vicious Mockery. So now a wizard can cast Vicious Mockery.
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, I do not have a problem with that itself, right? The thing is, I do not have a problem with the wizard gaining more options for their spells when the bard and sorcerer also, the option idea is good, but just because I have more option doesn't mean that the change is good.
Exactly.
Because the change is still bad. I want more variation in the spellcasters through the spells that they choose to use.
Yeah.
And the spell list moves away from that direction that I wanted them to go.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So, Nils, 21 pages of document, 1 hour of announcements. So this first glance at playtest material, the first informations we all have. What is your first impression of it all? How do you like it? What is your opinion after we've discussed it all?
I have mixed feelings, you could say.
Okay, yeah.
I like some changes a lot, and I hate some changes a lot as well. For example, especially the fucking spell list.
Yeah, I know. For me, it's the inspiration change. For you, it's the spell lists. I also really do not like the spell lists, but I can understand what direction they're going. I hope we can still change the direction they're going. I do not think we can change the direction they're going with inspiration anymore.
Yeah, sadly not, because I hate that too.
That mechanic has left the station or something. But okay, yeah, totally.
But I like the way they chose to interact or change the background thing and focus more on feats and making it leveled. Overall, I think it has some good directions in it that needs to be pushed in the better direction even more, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They are in the rough right direction. Now let's try to make it to a good path to take.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it's a first glance. It's a first look. It's a first thing. It's still 1.5 or more years out before this comes out. So again, calm my fucking tits. It's all still in playtest. It's early stages. I can still overlook a few things. I like it. But when I have to condense it all, I like what I'm hearing.
Overall, definitely.
I like the direction. I like the idea. I like everything I've heard. There are a lot of things I really do not like. Like, again, do more about the racist wizards. You could do better. Please do better. Fuck inspiration in all of its ways. Spell lists, but feats, backgrounds, languages. And also a lot of the other implications, right? The backwards compatibility. I do not think that that's bad. There are a lot of people that make this out to sound bad because wizards are trying to sell us more game content. And I'm here like, yes, they're trying to sell us more game content. They've never lied about that they want to make money from this game. Why all of a sudden, when they say you need to pay money for this new edition, we all lose our fucking tits?
I don't know.
When I look at all the things we have written down, there are a few things that are really a sore thorn in my eyes. Like the racist thing, we need to do better about that. The spell lists, reworked inspiration. I also really don't like the change of the success and failure thing. But overall, I think the direction of this document is the right one. Yeah. It's a step, and it's a good step, and I like the step, and I hope they do more of this and go more in this direction, do better, and I would really be happy if they do.
Exactly.
So yeah, overall, I think we can both say we enjoyed the changes we're seeing. We want more, we ask for more, and we hope we get more. But yeah, this was a fun episode. I really enjoyed discussing this with someone else, especially that I had someone to discuss this with who wasn't fear-mongering, because...
And I think a healthy dose of skepticism is good, but fear-mongering and just a witch hunt for something that isn't even there yet... Please stop it.
Be critical, be skeptical, make sure that you always look at it with full set of eyes and not just, that works great. Be critical of the stuff you see. It's still a company that wants to make money off of us. They haven't lied about that, but you need to check that. You need to watch out. It's still a thing that we have to watch out for what's coming. And if you do not like a change, make your voice heard AF in the feedback survey. Wizards is gonna take the majority opinion from the feedback survey and gonna look at it and evaluate if they want to implement it. If they do not implement it, it didn't seem worth it to them. That is then a reason for you to say, I'm gonna stop playing D&D, or hey, my skepticism wasn't hurt, or hey, I was right, or whatever. Sure, but wait for them to react now. They've given us the tools to act, now let's act, and then let them react, and then act again. Because there's a lot of stuff coming out that we should act about. Because if we want to change D&D, this is the time to do it. That's a good closing statement. excitement. So please, Neil, send us off for today. It's been a pleasure to record episode 83.
Hell yeah. And with that, as per usual, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at DoubleDMPod, or you can visit our website at www.doubledm.com. We also have a Ko-Fi if you would like to check that out. And please, if you enjoy the show, leave it a rating on your favorite podcasting listening platform of your choice. And with that, thank you all for listening. Hear you on the next one, and bye-bye.